Okay, welcome to Virtua Health's Real Talk Women's Health Chat. I'm Bridget Reuter from the Virtua Marketing team, and it is wonderful to see so many of you joining us tonight for this awesome topic. So many people have responded with great questions, and I think everyone can relate to decluttering yourself from the outside in. A few quick reminders that your camera and your microphone are disabled, but you can still interact with our panelists throughout the session by typing your questions into the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. You can also choose to submit questions anonymously. A number of you have already submitted great questions, and we are going to incorporate them throughout the discussion. And also a reminder that a recording of all of our great topics tonight will be shared with you after the session. If you prefer to have closed captioning on, you can click on your screen at the bottom of the Zoom screen where it says live transcript. That will allow you to show subtitles, and you can even change the size of the font on your screen if that's your preference. So we have so much great information to share. Let's get started. We have two phenomenal experts today. We have Kerry Echavarria. She is a psychiatric nurse practitioner with Virtua Health. And we also have Deborah Cabral. She is a certified professional organizer and productivity coach. Kerry has worked in the field of psychiatry for 12 years. She is currently cares for patients, their emotional health needs, including anxiety, depression, and other mood disorders for patients through Virtua's primary care practices. She is married with two children, a 4-year-old daughter and a 9-month-old son. I remember those days. Deb Cabral has more than 20 years of experience helping people break the cycle of disorganization and regain control and increase productivity and decrease stress. She also hosts a weekly television program called Organization Motivation, and she's the author of Declutter Your Life Now. I happen to have a great copy right here. We are so excited to welcome our guests. Oh, Deb is also married with 3 children and 1 granddaughter. Welcome, Kerry and Deb, to Real Talk Women's Health Chat.
Hello, how are you, Bridget? Hi, everyone.
I'm great. Welcome. Hi, Kerry.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Bridget.
Thank you so much for joining us. With over 900 people registered for our session tonight, we want to hear from all of our participants. So we've got a poll question to kick us off. So our first question is, how motivated do you feel right now to begin to declutter your life? And you can, this is rated from 0 to 5, right? Are you feeling not very motivated, not ready, or 5, very motivated, ready to go? So just click the answer on your screen, and we will just give everyone a minute to kind of just check in right now at the beginning of our session. How are you feeling? All right. So we have our answers. Let's see. Okay, so we have, all right, it's about split between a 4 and a 5. So most people are here, right? Maybe some 3s. They're here, they're feeling motivated, but we do have those that are just maybe feeling a little defeated, a little unprepared. So we're going to see if we can swing those numbers a little bit throughout the next hour and provide you with the information you need to get started. All right, so Deb, when we talk about clutter, I think that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. How do you define what is clutter in our lives?
Yeah, so clutter to me is postponed decisions, right? It's those decisions we have to make, like, oh, should I keep this? Maybe I'll need this someday. I don't know if I'm going to, I might need it, I might not. Should I save it? Should I give it to my mom? So it's these decisions that clothing, things around our home, things that relatives have left for us. It's really about postponing decisions and not making decisions right away. And then that clutter in your spaces really affects your mental health.
Kerry, you could probably tell us all about the mental health aspects. How do you define the emotional clutter?
Yeah, so emotional clutter, I think goes right along with the physical clutter that Deb had mentioned, and we'll be talking about more. And, that's feelings of anger, resentment, shame, doubts, just stress in general. And a lot of times it can stem from big life events. So divorce or losing someone, lots of various things. And sometimes it's good stress. So big events coming up, getting married, and a new grandchild or child coming to the world, but a lot of it can cause different levels of stress and like I said, those feelings of like the mental type clutter. So yeah, looking forward to talking more about this.
Well, you mentioned shame, and I think that's not talked about enough when it comes to this and how people feel. So I think, this is a no judgment zone tonight. We are going to just really put it out there and talk through a lot of this, because I think it's a area that is so important to the physical clutter and also the emotional. So that really brings me to my next question. What comes first? Is it the anxiety and stress that causes the clutter, or is it the clutter that causes the anxiety and stress?
That is a great question. And I don't know if I have the best answer. I think the answer that I have is that it depends, because everyone is different and everyone's going through different things at different stages. So in a lot of cases, I do think the clutter can come first. But in many cases, I do think it's the emotions first. And clutter is kind of a behavior that is associated with the emotion.
We like to say it's cyclical. Sometimes it is the clutter first, but sometimes it's the emotional trauma or stress that you're going through, which then causes you to declutter. So we see with our clients, sometimes their home is very organized until they have this major life event that is causing them a lot of stress. And then that has to take precedence instead of keeping your house tidy. So we like to call it that circle. It's like that hamster wheel you cannot get off, right? The physical clutter breeds mental clutter and vice versa.
Right. It's like if you can't find your shoes or the kids' shoes or the keys, and because of the clutter, but then there's also that walking into a room and feeling like I'm stressed by my clutter. And yes, I come from a long line of savers and emotional clutter. So, all right, let's find out from our guests another polling question. So what is your biggest clutter challenge? Now you can select more than one answer here. So is it space, not enough or not enough useful space? Is it time? Is your calendar full, no time to organize? Life clutter, those are those emotional or mental barriers. Or maybe you don't even know where to begin. It's just clutter and it's everywhere and you feel overwhelmed by it. I think I can understand that. So let's see. So while we're waiting to see, is there anything else you feel like the stress of clutter, does it make us not want to clean up? I feel like there's that, like, I'm so overwhelmed, I can't even get started, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's what we see. The hardest part is getting started with the clients that we work with. If we can get them motivated to just start, and starting means 10 or 15 minutes a day, right? It doesn't have to mean taking a day off from work to declutter your house or taking a week's vacation to go through your garage. It really just means starting. And typically what happens is when we get stressed, we shut down and do nothing. So our goal is to try to get people motivated to take at least that first step, ever so slightly that it may be, but to just take that first step.
Oh, that's great. Okay, here we go. So really across the board, life clutter, the emotional mental barriers, it's that getting rid of something and not feeling like you might need it, right? That fear of getting rid of something. So I think, we're going to touch on all of this. So this is really, I think, good feedback. How about that fear? I think, that was, how do you manage that fear that I'll need something, so I don't want to get rid of it? Because sure enough, you get rid of something and you're like, oh, where is that? I could have used it now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think as far as the fear goes, I think we have to learn to get over that, because most things are replaceable. So if we're going to save something in our home that we may only use once in a while, or we may only use every 10 years, I like to say that you have to live within your space, right? So we have to live within our space in our home. So just like we have to live within our financial means, we have to live within the space that we have. And so many of our clients will say, I need a bigger house. But what you really need to do is figure out, you have to have enough things in your home to really make your home feel I like to call it your sanctuary, a place where you can escape from the stress of your job and really be able to come home and just enjoy. If it's overwrought with clutter, you're not going to be able to do that. Can you sit at the dining room table and have dinner with your family? Many of the families that we work with cannot. Can you sit on your couch and snuggle up and watch a movie with your husband or your partner or your children? Most of our clients cannot. And so I think the saving part, we have to get over that and talk about the joy that we want to really see in our home every day.
Right. Is it that holding on to that book or that item that is going to bring you joy, or it's, you know, what you just described, right? And being able to balance that in our minds. Sure, I can definitely understand that. So you talked a little bit about it already, but let's define the benefits of you know, decluttering, more than just having a clean space, right? Just a clean, clear space. There are more benefits, and maybe that helps with some of the motivation, if you can describe some of those.
Yes, the first is time and money. Like, we just never have enough of those, right? So when we are organized and we declutter and get things out of our home and our office that we don't need, we do save time and money. I remember we had one guest on our show. It was a single dad that was raising 3 boys by himself, and we were doing his kitchen. And the funniest thing was how many things of Morton salt we found in his kitchen. And there were 5. So the thing is, Morton salt is not that expensive, but think about like those really expensive spices that you may only use once a year. And if you keep buying them over and over again, and we do this with lots of things. I mean, we see people that have 3 vacuums because they can't find the other 2 that are in their home. So that space, you know, saving that time and energy and money is really important. The other thing is you want to avoid those duplicates, like I just mentioned. Not only do you not want to spend the money, but you don't want to take up the space in your home. And then the most important thing to me is the clutter in the kitchen. Like, when you can clear that out, you can make healthy meals. It really helps you lose weight. It helps your family de-stress. So those are just some of the, you know, really kind of obvious benefits. And we always explain those benefits to people, because many times when you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious, you don't even see the benefits, or you can't even, you know, talk about those. So I think it's really important that you write those down, what it would be the benefits to you. And those are the top couple that we usually talk about with our clients.
How about the health benefits, Kerry?
Yeah, so once you start decluttering, it really can gradually help you improve your mood, your overall ability to focus and sustain attention in tasks, can help your sleep improve. And in turn, if there's any presence of chronic pain, there's also been proof that can also improve as well once your mood and your mental health has gotten a better check. I'm trying to think what else blood pressure is a big one. Actually, a lot of times with some of the services that we provide at Virtua, when we have short-term cognitive behavioral therapy for people that deal with stress and the behaviors of hoarding and cluttering, a lot of times we measure things like BMI or body mass index, take vital signs, look at lab work like cholesterol level. And those are all things that in time, between 8 and 12 sessions even, those are factors that do improve that we see. So a lot of health benefits.
To clearing some of the clutter and having a more organized space, or yes, for you, organized for you, because it's probably different for everyone, right? I know there's people who you know, are visual, right? I need to see my stuff, versus those that want everything tucked away and put away, right? How do you help someone like that? Like, I want to see my stuff, right?
It's funny that you brought that up. So a couple of years back, I did a cover story for Secrets of Getting Organized magazine, and they do replay it a lot, and it is available on our website. It's a Better Homes and Gardens specialty magazine that they put out quarterly. And they asked me to write a kind of a action plan for 4 different types of, like, you see all kinds of personalities. So there was Visual Vivian, Tidy Trish, Social Sally, and Multitasking Millie. And so if you have an opportunity, go to our website and check it out. But the Social Sallies, I like to call them the outsies. They like to see everything out. They need their stuff. It makes them feel happy. It brings them joy. The innies are more like those, you know, Multitasking Millies or the Tidy Trishes, where they want, you know, they kind of want to know where their things are, but they want them tucked in neat in a drawer with labels and really nice bins. So when we're working with clients, we help them figure out what their personality organizing style is before we start working with them, because you don't want to set up a system for somebody that's not going to work for them. You have to organize what's going to be beneficial to them.
I think that's great, because there are so many really cool shows now. This has become a very popular topic, but one solution doesn't work for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's jump into where do we start? I think that's what everybody wants to know. How do we get this process started?
Okay, first you want to identify what is the clutter in your life. Is it the physical? We took that poll and it was all over the place, but if it's the physical, you want to focus on that, whatever it might be. But here are the steps. Number
that's the
one,
space, right? Where we said
that's
space,
your
physical space. Okay.
Yes. So let's start with that. Number one, you have to just start. That is always the hardest part. Like, we call later clutter's best friend because it never comes, right? I'll do it later. That's why they're BFFs. So what you want to do is you actually want to set an appointment with yourself and start. And so typically we'll give clients homework. So after we're done today with our session, we want you to spend 15 minutes for the next week every day until we come back. So if you can do 15 minutes, you realize that over the long haul, you can really have some great results. So one of the things we tell clients are small changes over time yield big results. You don't have to do an overhaul or a massive declutter. You want to take your time because that's where you're going to be consistent with doing it. I always suggest tackling the area that's causing you the most stress. Is it your kitchen? Is it your closet? Is it your mudroom when you enter your home? Whatever it might be, you have to make sure you tackle that first. And then set an appointment in your calendar like you would do with a friend that you're going to have coffee, or a friend that you're going to go to walk with, or going out to dinner with your spouse. If we don't set this appointment with ourselves, again, it never gets done. That later kind of takes over. And then try not to procrastinate. I'm a big fan of Mel Robbins. A lot of you have probably heard of Mel Robbins. She's an amazing speaker. I got to meet her last year at a conference, and her thing is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And so we teach that to our clients too. When you see that pile of clothing that you folded and never put away, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, and put it away. And so don't procrastinate. And then the last thing, have an accountability buddy. But my advice is don't let it be your partner. That never works. You want it to be like a friend, a family member that's really going to hold you accountable. And so when you tell people I'm in the process of decluttering, it really gets you motivated, inspired, especially if you've told people and you have that accountability buddy.
Wow. Okay. That was a lot. And I think one of the things, somebody recently said this to me, and it seems so simple, but what was it? Don't put it down, put it away.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, that's such a simple thing that we probably say to our kids when they're toddlers, right? But I think I'm going to say that to myself, because it's clutter attracts clutter, right? So if you always keep putting it in the same spot, don't put it down, put it away.
Yeah.
So then I guess it's finding maybe a home, right? It's making sure it has a home.
A place for everything and everything in its place.
Again, that's a lot. But I think doable. So, and I like the accountability buddy and not your partner. So I know we got a lot of questions about, my partner and trying, if you have a spouse who is not on board with keeping things neat and tidy, any advice there on how to negotiate that area?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of couples, and we say that you have to meet in the middle. Just because someone's really, really tidy doesn't mean that the other spouse is all the way to the other side, because sometimes it's almost too much. They're like so organized that it's driving the other one crazy. So what you want to do is, number one, you don't want to determine whose clutter it is. It really doesn't matter. You want to just move and work together as a team, whether it be a couple or a family, to get rid of that clutter. But you have to meet each other in the middle, right? It's not about one person being right and one person being wrong, because when you do that, that's where the shame that Kerry was talking about comes into play. So it's my clutter. So I think what you want to do is, instead of saying like, get my spouse on board, is can we come together as a team and work on this together?
Well, and what about the mindset when it comes to that? Because I think, Kerry, you could probably see this with your patients, right? It's their fault. I can't, there is that sort of defeating, blaming. It's really my husband that complains about me and my clutter, but we're different personalities with the way that we like to keep our stuff. So what's the mental way or the mindful way to approach that?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I agree with Deb that being on the same page and the teamwork is really important. I think even to make that more simple and to kind of, know yourself, what angle you want, is to maybe write down some goals. So that's where I would suggest taking out a journal, and sometimes we call it like a brain dump, where you've got a bunch of things that you want to do and you're not sure where to start. Maybe your spouse has different desires, or maybe is not on the same page as you. But I think if you yourself can write down the goals that you have, and kind of take a look at it the next day even. And then you can kind of break it down and prioritize where you want to start. And if you feel like you're motivated and empowered, that, that good energy might just get to your spouse if they're feeling more negative or drawn back about it.
That's a good point. Okay, this is a heavy one. What about the sentimental clutter?
Yes,
the photo albums, the things from grandma or from the children, a deceased relative, right?
Yeah, so that's my social Sally in my article that I wrote. So the social Sally, just loves all of those things around. So I'm also a certified personal photo organizer. So I am a photo bug. I love photos. But I think what you really want to do is make sure that you're preserving them in a safe space. And that is not Google, just to say. I won't, that's another whole webinar, but you want to make sure that they're safe. And so the thing with sentimental things is that we have to remember that the memories are in our heart, not in the physical objects. And that's hard for people. So when a lot of the clients that we work with, if they have something that they can't let go of, we take a picture of the item, or we take a picture of them holding the item. And then, we say, are you ready to let go of it, and give it to someone either who is going to be able to take care of it, or someone that will really be able to enjoy it because you're not. So really kind of getting to that fact that it's not that physical item that brings us the joy. I said that once at a speaking engagement, and I said, your relative would not want you to keep things in your home that you don't love and bring you joy. They just wouldn't want that. And so one woman raised her hand and said, my mother would haunt me from the grave if I gave away the vase that she gave me. So I think we have to kind of let that go. And again, what we're looking for is to have a home that we are comfortable in, and that we can move freely and enjoy ourselves and really, relax and be at peace.
It reminds me of a story so I received some items from an elderly relative who gave them to me while she was living, and shared the story with me behind them and the history. And it has so much meaning and impact for me to have that one piece, that item from her. And then I was able to also receive things from a relative who passed, who had many, many things and didn't share those when she was alive, or didn't give, I think that the difference was I didn't have the story and the connection to those pieces. And so I thought, for myself, what a difference that makes if you can share, because it has so much more meaning, and then you feel the joy by giving that away. And if you have, I think there's also, you want to make sure someone appreciates it, but what a difference that made for me to be able to share that in the moment with that person while they were here, and we could laugh about the stories behind that cause.
That's where your emotional attachment is. I can see it in your face as soon as you said that. Yes. So does that item have a special place in your home where you're seeing it on a regular basis? Okay, good. There's a lot of the clients we work with are like, oh, I love Hummels. That's great. We don't see them around the house. There's like 4,000 in a box in the attic. So it's really having those things around you that bring you joy, rather than, tucking them away where you're not really enjoying them.
True. And I think for me, the fact that she gave it away while she was letting it go while we could share it together, versus holding on to it, and not being able to let it go. So I think that it made a difference, certainly for me. And I think, it's a little easier to let it go if you can see someone else bringing someone else joy. Kerry, any thoughts on the whole emotional attachment?
Yes, I think they go hand in hand, the emotional attachment and holding on to things. I think, and if we break it down to biology, there's a structure in our brain called the amygdala. So that holds on to, like if we look at one of the physical objects, clutter, photos, or other pieces of memorabilia, we kind of, our brain associates it with memories, and as well as the amygdala can also regulate our emotions. So there's such a strong connection there. But I think Deb has done a really good job of kind of, as far as coping strategies, deciding what to prioritize, and kind of just, rationalizing with yourself, do I really need this? And you're always going to have your memories. That's going to stay with you. The objects are objects. So I think it's important to remember that.
That's great. Okay. How about the backslide? So I'm going to start cleaning out. I get one whole space organized, but then it just gets filled with clutter again. How do we avoid that? It's just so defeating. It feels defeating to go through all that effort and then not being able to maintain it.
Right. So when we're looking at decluttering and organizing, we know that there's going to be a slippery slope. It happens to a lot of us. So we have to give ourselves some space and some grace and say it's going to happen occasionally. One of the things that we love is before and after photos. So if you take a photo of the space before and then after, and then you look at that and you see that it's starting to slip, that physical picture, that reminder is really going to help you kind of motivate to stay on track. So the key with keeping organized is having a schedule, right? That you're going to every week do that tidying up, right? So whether it be, you know, one night a week or 15 minutes a day, there has to be a plan in place to keep things in order. You know, we can't just, you know, leave it and expect it's going to stay like that. We live in our homes, right? So we have to have that schedule to make sure that we're keeping up. And it's a family event. It's not just for the parents. You know, we've got to make sure that every child as young as 2 years old can help, you know, put things away. And there's really great strategies that you can use even with the young ones. But it is a family event and it has to be scheduled so that after you're done with the decluttering, if it gets a little untidy, you just go back. You know, you don't feel bad about it. You don't go back to that shame that Kerry mentioned. You know, you just get back up and start again.
Yeah. I think there is, and it's probably a mental, a mindset too, right? I'm doing this for me. I'm doing that 15 minutes because I want to, right? How much of that mindset comes into play of wanting to take that 15 minutes, right? I think 15 minutes sounds like anybody can do that, right? I can take 15 minutes tonight and I can clear this pile of papers that you cannot see on this side of my desk over here. And I will do it for me because I will feel better tomorrow.
I think it's the language that you tell yourself, like instead of saying I have to, I choose to. I choose to do this 15 minutes every day because it's good for me and my family. I don't have to. We don't have to do anything, right? We make choices. And so I choose to. So it's that positive language that I think Kerry can probably speak to too from an emotional standpoint. I mean, it's so important to not listen to the negative voices in our head.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Deb. I completely agree. And it's such a, like, it's until we really pay attention to that, sometimes we don't even notice if we're doing any kind of negative self-talk. So choosing our words wisely is really an important component of this whole process. And just kind of adding to that, I've also told people too, like, you know, as humans, we can all be pretty hard on ourselves and perfectionistic in a lot of ways. So instead of, you know, if I don't do anything today, I'm a failure. That's not true. And that's why I think kind of going with what we talked about earlier is instead of saying I'm going to clean this kitchen today and then be disappointed if we don't clean the whole thing, just tell yourself that you're going to clean the dishes. So just break things into components. That way, you know, you won't disappoint yourself in the end and you'll still keep that level of motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How about, you had mentioned about setting boundaries, you know, and writing things down. And does that help? That's all part of the mental clutter, right? Clearing out some of that stress and the mental clutter that kind of gets, how is that connected to the physical clutter and what are some strategies to kind of clear through some of it?
Yeah, so boundary setting can be life-changing, and that we could probably do a whole session on that.
We should. Let's do that.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure Deb probably has great experience with this too. I mean, and I can just kind of cover the surface, but you know, we need to set boundaries with ourselves, number one. So it's a whole network of different things. Like if you're busy and you're working full time and you've got a family and you have just a bunch of stuff, and in addition to other things that you might have going on, taking care of a sick parent, other extra responsibilities, there are ways to still be able to do things and still work on decluttering during all of that. Is it going to be a bit more challenging? Yes, but you can still do it, even if it's 5 minutes a day. So that where the boundaries come in is and even if you have to write it down, is maybe telling yourself, you know, on Tuesday, I'm not going to do this extra thing that I normally do. Or, you know, it doesn't even have to be taking away physical things. It could maybe just be reducing the amount of time that you would normally spend with things. Again, I'm kind of just scratching the surface here. So
like your Facebook or like technology or email, like spending, like, I mean, that could be an area where you could say, okay, I'm not gonna, right? I mean, when you say like maybe decreasing things that take time that maybe don't add value, like what would be some examples of ways that you might?
That's a great example. So cutting down on social media, because it's not, I mean, it's something you can look at, it's entertaining, but it's not benefiting you. So that's one perfect example.
Is it okay to like make deals
and
with yourself? Like, I'm not going to do this until I do my 15 minutes. Like, can you make those negotiations with yourself?
Yeah,
Is that healthy?
absolutely. Yes. And good point. You know, if the social media, it could be used as a reward, or, you know, you can tell yourself, after I do this small task, I'm going to get myself like, and treat yourself to a food that you like, a healthy food. Go out and buy something, an acai bowl. Those are delicious, and those are a nice treat. And they're full of nutrients, so that's a good one. But that's just an example. But yeah, you use those things as rewards for yourself for once you get through the clutter work, some of it.
And don't deprive yourself. Don't say, well, I can't go on social media because I have to declutter. And here we go, have to, right? I choose to spend the next half hour decluttering, or the next 20 minutes decluttering, and then I'm going to spend 20 minutes on social media. So it's about choices, and it is setting up boundaries. And boundaries, I think, like, you know, what you said, Kerry, with yourself. Yeah. So I am not going to allow myself to miss this appointment with myself. Now, so many of us do that. I don't know. It's a woman thing, I think. I don't think men really will agree on that. If they make a plan, they keep it. Like, I'm going golfing, I'm going to the gym, I go. With women, we have this guilt, like, oh, I should be, you know, doing something, you know, for my kids, or I should be going help my parents, or we have to set boundaries, because if we don't respect boundaries with ourselves, no one else will respect those boundaries. So this is my declutter time, or this is my gym time, whatever it might be. But boundaries, yeah, that would be a whole other session. I think I agree with you, Kerry.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, life changing, I'm telling you.
And write it down. So I'm hearing a pattern, like write it down.
Yeah.
And the language that we use with ourselves, being kind to ourselves, and I don't have to, I choose to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Breaking it down into small pieces. I love this, like 15-minute, 20-minute. I think and boundaries for ourselves. I hadn't really thought of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. How about, you know, I think we talked also about some other, like the mental clutter, like the toxic people in your life. Like that's also probably a whole nother session. But was there anything that you wanted to share there? Because I think this whole clutter topic and feeling like you're at odds with the people you live with, maybe the people you work with, how do you manage that?
Kerry, do you want to take that, or you want me to take that?
You know, I'll let you take that one, Deb, and maybe I'll talk about it more if I hear what you're saying.
Right. I think with this life clutter, we call it toxic people, bad relationships. I mean, those things really do affect the physical clutter in our life. So I always believe it's really important to have open, honest conversations with people, and most of us do not. Right? If somebody says, how you feeling? You're like, good. What's wrong? Nothing. I mean, this is just what we do. But I think, you know, we have to learn to open up and say, you know what, this morning, you know, what you said really hurt my feelings, or I don't know if you realize, but what you did to me in that meeting really made me feel uncomfortable. And I felt, you know, embarrassed in front of our colleagues. So having those open, honest conversations, not yelling and screaming, calm conversations, I think really help you know, rid some of those toxic relationships. And, you know, in my other side of my business, that's what I do. I do training and coaching and consulting in corporate America. And so team coaching is something that I love to do, because that's what happens a lot with these relationships, is that people don't want to speak about what's wrong, and then they hold grudges, and then it just perpetrates from there. But those feelings are what perpetrates the clutter too. It's the same exact feeling. Like, I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling frustrated. And then what do? We don't want to deal with what's going on in our home or our office. So I don't know if you can add anything to that, Kerry.
Yeah, you made excellent points. And I was just going to add too, like, just to kind of summarize, I'm not sure if any of you have heard of the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, but those are great bullet points to life. So I'm just going to reference one of them on top of what you were saying, Deb, is one of them is to speak with integrity, and to say only what you mean. So sometimes we can like have a lot of feelings inside, and we think that we're getting across our emotions or our communications what we need to say, but sometimes it can get mixed and emotional, and then we misinterpret signals and all that. So this is just speaking for communication between friends, family, work associates, other people, that it's just important to be really clear with what you mean. And if you're not sure what someone's referring to, then just, ask them for some clarification.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll take a lot of unnecessary drama away from your life.
Mm-hmm.
And help with some of those difficult conversations about, the things that cause you stress and the clutter and,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the things we tell our clients is, a lot of folks, they just are embarrassed of their home. They don't want to have anybody over, but they never share that information. So they're always being invited to someone else's house, but they never invite anyone to their own house. So we tell them, use the word chaos. And it's like kind of a joke. Chaos, CHAOS. Can't have anybody over syndrome. That's what we call it. Can't have anybody over syndrome. So if you have chaos, you can just say, I've got a little chaos at my house. Can't have anybody over syndrome, but I'm working on it, so that at least your friends understand that it's not that they always want to be invited out. They eventually will return the favor. It's just they're not in a position where they're comfortable having people in their home yet.
Yeah, I agree. And also too, I'm just thinking as we talk, I statements are always good to use too. Like I feel this way, I feel that way. That it's just a good way to kind of put things in perspective, so that the other party or the other person doesn't think you're blaming them for anything. Like you. It's better to reference yourself as I, so they can understand better.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's great. We definitely need to schedule another one of these to get into those topics. So, all right, let's go talk a little bit about getting distracted when you are setting. This is a big, for some people, this is very overwhelming. And so the idea that my sister and I joke all the time, like, I'm going to clean the laundry room, but I end up organizing the silverware instead. Why does that happen? I'm going to clean out my closet, right? And then you end up, doing some little tiny task that really didn't have to get done at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I like to call some folks really have attention deficit disorder. So it's something that they cannot help. And so when we work with our clients that will be honest and tell us that that's what they have, we remind them that, when you have that, sometimes bright, shiny objects distract you. And so what we do with folks that have that, we work on small, easy to manage projects. And we ask permission before we start. Is it okay if we help redirect you if you are getting off focus? And they're like, absolutely. So we always ask permission before we do it. But we see that a lot. Oh, I want to go do that area. Well, why don't we, spend a few more minutes and let's tackle this area first before we move on. So when you have that, ability to easily get distracted and have a hard time focusing, it's just about really being, patient and caring and respectful of the other person, and just kind of helping them redirect back on the topic.
What if we don't have a you standing in our kitchen with us?
You want to be able to try to recognize that yourself. So sometimes we use a timer, whether it be an egg timer, a timer on your iPhone, a timer, and say, can you stay focused and do this particular task for 10 minutes? And let's see where you are. Take a photo before, take a photo after. And so that timer is a really good thing. If you just can't catch yourself, sometimes we can't. Going back to what Kerry said about lists, I'm a list person. If I'm working in my office, I have a paper one because I love the ability to, check things off. But most of the time I'm looking at my digital to-do list. And I think that's another way if you get easily distracted, keep going back to your list or your brain dump that Kerry referenced, because that's going to help you kind of get back on focus.
Okay. How do we do that brain dump, right? So once I get it all down, how do I organize that? Where do I start? Because my brain dump can be 2 pages long.
Yeah.
Of all the things so is the brain dump what I want to declutter, or is it just clearing your brain? How do you even start that process?
That's a good question. So the brain dump is literally just dumping all of your thoughts onto paper. For everyone, it'll be different and how you do it. But I recommend, a lot of people that I talk to, they say that nighttime is a time where they kind of think of everything right before they're going to go to sleep. So that's when I recommend writing everything down. And even if it's 2 pages, that's okay. And I recommend to kind of re-explore it the next day. So sleep on it, and then, dissect it later the next day. And even if you only dissect half of it, and then another 2 days later, do the other half. So kind of just another good idea of kind of breaking things down. And then if you take, 5 or 6 bullet points or ideas from your brain dump, and then those are a bit more easy to prioritize than, thousands of words or however that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Do you start small? I mean, Deb, how do you organize your brain dump?
Yes. I would, as Kerry said, I would get everything out of my head. And then sometimes when we work with clients and we do the brain dump, we're like, is this everything that has to be done this week? Or is this everything that has to be done this month? Or this is just everything that you can think of over the next 6 months? So then you might want to organize it. Is it in the next 24 to 48 hours? Is it next week? Is it next month? And then put it into categories, because when we do like things, we have more efficiency. So if you have to call the barber for your son, if you have to make a dentist appointment, if you have to call the bank, you do all those 3 phone calls at the same time. That is going to help, rather than call the bank, go fold a load of laundry, call the barber. So if we can put things together, we definitely become more efficient when we do that. So I think that's really important. And I think it's just, we have to give ourselves a little bit of space. I just wanted to mention really quickly, because I saw Jean, a comment from Jean. It said, I'm disabled with chronic pain. Sometimes it's impossible to do anything and then I feel guilty. Absolutely. So that's about setting ourselves up for success. If success is, I wake up this morning and I'm in chronic pain, I'm not feeling well, I am going to have a pass today. I'm not going to do any decluttering. And you know what? That's perfectly okay. Mm-hmm. So every day you want to set yourself up for success. If you wake up the next day and you're feeling better, you're like, okay, I'm going to do my 15 minutes today. But we have to learn to let go of that guilt. And I'm a mother and I'm Italian, so I have it double, right? So we just have to, again, be at peace with ourselves, give ourselves a little bit of grace and give ourselves a little bit of a break. We don't have to do it every day if we have reasons why we can't, and we don't need to feel guilty about those.
Sure. Yeah. No guilt. Let go of the shame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was going to add to that good point too, that sometimes it's okay to accept the discomfort that goes along with completing tasks. Sometimes it's not going to feel great or comfortable, and some occasions we can push through, even if it's just for a few minutes a day. And chances are, once you do that, you will feel a bit better and relieved.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. So when to push yourself, right? Sometimes we should push ourselves and sometimes we shouldn't. But yes. And maybe you can find something that you can do sitting down, like taking a bunch of photos in a box and sitting on the couch and going through them. So there are things that you can do on those more difficult days. And
could you, when you talk about the brain dump, right, of all those things to do, could that be a way to categorize that? These are the quick, this is I need a half a day, or I can do on a rainy day. How do you even, because sometimes there's that analysis paralysis, right? It's just, or I'm overwhelmed by it and I don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think Deb is probably going to be great at adding to this too. I was going to say that is a great idea to break it down, because again, that's kind of what we identify as a thought distortion when we say that, well, this is just too much, I can't do anything. And challenge yourself, challenge accepted that I can do some things and I'm going to feel good about it. I may not do 100% of what I intended initially to do, but I can still break it down. As you had said, Bridget, save this for a rainy day, or save this for, 2 days from now. So kind of break down, your timeline is going to look different from other people's timelines, but as long as you're kind of separating and still having different things on your list, even if it's not all done in one day, that's fine. That's totally reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to set some goals, but be flexible, right? Something is better than nothing. So if you can just do a little something, it's better than doing nothing at all.
Right. Yeah. And take some joy in that you have done something, right? We need to be kind to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, while we have been talking, we are getting so many great questions, and I would love to jump to some of those. And one I think is a really great one is about workplace clutter. How do we, is it the same? Do we approach it the same way? And then also as a follow-up to that, managing our email.
Yes. Oh, that's a whole other webinar as well. But yes, workplace clutter. So again, my team, we work with a lot of corporations that have corporate clutter, right? Work clutter. So I think you want your workspace to be just as organized and peaceful as you want your home to be. Because you have to be able to be creative there. It's okay to have some mementos, pictures of your family or vacations, things that inspire you. But when you have so much clutter, it really distracts you from doing the work that you have to do. So yes, and a lot of organizations hire us and we do declutter days. We come in and, they give the, folks 2 hours off. I'll do like a motivational talk and then they'll have 2 hours. They're coming in their jeans back before, now that we're home, a lot of people are still home. The clients that we work with, are still at home, but coming in real casual clothes. And the company says these 2 hours in the morning are declutter. So everyone does their personal space and then everyone does the shared spaces, because sometimes the shared spaces in some offices are really bad. It's like everybody's old junk that they didn't want at their desk just gets thrown into like the center. And then as far as email, again, that's a whole other thing. But my thing is that you should be trying to only keep in your email the things that you're going to be doing within the next few days. If it's something that you're going to refer to later, you should put it on a diary or a to-do and get rid of it. I worked with a client once that had 66,000 emails in their in bin. That is overwhelming, coming in and seeing that number. But another quick tip with email is that you want to make sure that you're doing it at various points during the day, not all day long. They said the average person at work sometimes check their email between 45 and 50 times a day. I mean, that is such a big waste of productivity, right? So, check it. I always say, don't check it first thing in the morning. My thing, this is a Julie Morgenstern thing, like do something really important first thing in the morning that's on your to-do list, something that's important to you to drive your success for the day, then check your email. I like to check it, before lunch, sometime mid-afternoon, and then before the end of the day. But you have to set up what works for you, but don't be like every ting ding, turn those ting dings off your phone, off your laptop. I said that at one organization, they're like, Deb, like we like those ting dings and we want people like jumping when we do the ting dings. I'm like, okay, well then you got to do what your corporation has you do. But I really think it's important to make sure that you're controlling the destiny of your day. You're being proactive in your work, not reactive.
Right, not working from your inbox. I've heard people say that before, right? That you've got your things you're setting out to do, and then certain times in the day you check your email, so that you're still being responsive. But easier said than done, though, for sure.
Right. Yes. It's really a mind shift, like Kerry referred to. It's priorities and changing and setting boundaries. I'm not going to be looking at email all day long. And sometimes you can even say to, or in your away message, like I check email at 1, 2, whatever. If you really need me and it's urgent, please give me a call.
I think when you set those boundaries, it gives other people permission to do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Okay, so there's the H word, hoarding. How do we know the difference between clutter, sentimental, and hoarding?
Yeah, so I'm actually in the process right now. Good question. I'm writing a class for a New York City agency that has caseworkers that go out and work with people in the community, whether they be there to help with the children or help with adults that are in need. So I and my business have not worked with anybody for quite some time on the hoarding spectrum. We did it for many years, and then we just found that it's a very difficult process. It really is. And I think there are specialists that do this, and I think there's a reason why, because it's very, very time consuming. It's very difficult. And you really have to be able to give your best to the person. But the difference is, can you function, right? Are you able to walk into your house? Are paths, is it a clear path? Can you sit at your dining room table? Can you sit at your, on your couch? The difference between that is, or are you walking through, paths? So again, we don't use the word hoarders. I really feel like it has a negative connotation. We say someone would be on the hoarding spectrum, or we say somebody is a collector, but we try to stay away from that word because again, it's really shaming them, and we want to separate the clutter from the person. Right. So you're a mother, a father, an aunt, a brother who has hoarding tendencies or collecting tendencies. So rather than say you are a hoarder, again, stay away from that. If you know anybody, we actually have someone in our family who is on the hoarding spectrum. And every time she calls herself that, it's my husband's aunt, I say, please don't say that, because you're not. You're not, because it adds all the shame and guilt. So if you can, manage your life then you're typically not on the hoarding spectrum. And there's a spectrum that you can follow. ICD, the Association for Chronic Disorganization, they have a clutter like chart that you can actually look up, 5 levels that will tell you from chronic disorganization all the way to compulsive hoarding. So most people who are in that situation where they are on a high level of the hoarding spectrum, they know it. They know it. They're not oblivious.
Are there warning signs that we need to watch for ourselves even? I mean, it feels like sometimes it's a learned, is it a learned behavior? You know, I know there's a lot of things that trigger it, so we don't have to necessarily go down that path, but are there certain warning signs that you should make sure of?
It's typically triggered from an emotional event. For my husband's aunt, it was the loss of her husband at 40 years old, and she had 6 children. So it was just extremely, she was kind of a collector. She was on her way, but that really kind of made it very difficult for her. So I think when you see that things are starting to feel out of place, when you are not feeling calm in your own home, you know, there is no shame. You just need to reach out for help. But again, ICD is a really great resource.
Can you share that one more time? ICD?
Yep, ICD, the Institute for Chronic Disorganization. You can get a lot of free resources on their website. They're a great organization. When we were doing a lot of work with people on the hoarding spectrum, we were subscribers to them. Now, again, I do use them as resources from time to time. And I did take classes from them early on when I first started the business back in 2010. But because we have, you know, we're not doing that as much, we're not current subscribers, but it's a great organization. I mean, they have fantastic information. Also, the Institute for OCD, also, believe it or not, hoarding now is actually on the DM, and it's under the OCD. It's called hoarding tendencies or hoarding compulsion. So it's under OCD. Yes, hoarding disorder. There you are, the DSM-5, right? So, but it's, you know, what's kind of strange. It's under the OCD, and people's like, well, that's the complete opposite, but it really isn't.
Yeah.
It really isn't.
Yep.
They're on the same spectrum. It's just one end to the other. Yes.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. I have nothing to add. I think you did great with that, Deb.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I had the evidence here.
You got the DSM out. Yay. Well, we were so happy as professional organizers because in 2013 was when the DSM actually recognized hoarding. Acknowledge it, and some organizations are able to be paid through insurance companies to do their professional organizing work.
Yeah, which is awesome.
It is. It really is awesome. Yeah.
Well, I think it's just great to know there's resources, that you're not in this alone, and you don't have to. You know, you don't have to just rely on Google, although there's great resources out there, that there really are professional organizations. There's physicians that can help you. There's professionals who are trained in this. I think that's really comforting to know that if this is really affecting you and your mental health and your life and your relationships, that you don't have to suffer through this, and Virtua can help connect you to some of those resources.
Right.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
I wanted to mention really quick too, if you're interested in working with a professional organizer, I'm a member of NAPO, the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. It's napo.net. You can put in your zip code where you live, and it'll pop up all the folks that are, those that are certified, those that are not, but they are members, and it'll give you their specialties, their website, all of that information. And that's, you know, again, another great organization. I'm really happy to be a member since 2010. So,
that's a great resource. Yeah. And maybe we can put some of these in the chat. And I know we will be following up with an email with the link to this recording, but we'll also include some great resources there for everyone. But if we can put some in the chat, some of those links as well, if people want to save them. This is great. All right, I want to go back to getting started, because I think, Deb, you had mentioned, you know, where do you start? Start with the area that's causing you the most stress.
Yes.
But I think I think if you can break that down a little bit, how to go about that.
Right. So for example, maybe it's your kitchen. Maybe you come into your kitchen and it's, you know, a lot of clutter. You don't feel like cooking because you can't find what you need, and there's no counter space for you to even work on. So maybe what you could do is say, okay, I'm going to tackle the kitchen first. And maybe you can only just do one countertop. You know, a lot of times we have multiple countertops in our kitchen. Just do one. And if it's too much, just do a portion of it. right? So just start small, but start. That's the problem. And
what
start
happens when you make a bigger mess, right? You take that, you start to pull things apart, and then you end up with a much bigger mess than, you spread out on the floor and no one can get to the refrigerator.
Right. So sometimes, again, you don't want to take on too much that you can't finish in that one session. So sometimes when you're decluttering, yes, it winds up a bigger mess before you put everything back, but sometimes you have to see everything. So what we'll do when we're working with someone and it's their countertop, and sometimes you can't see, it's kind of, piled, we'll have like an 8-foot, table. We'll spread everything out on the table. And they're like, all of that was on there? Yes, it was. That's okay. Let's go through it one at a time. So I still think you have to decide like areas, and then you have to take everything out and look at it. And sometimes we have to touch those things. So, when we talk to clients, they'll say, well, how long is it going to take? And we're like, we take the cue from the client. Some clients can make really quick decisions on what they want to keep and what they want to get rid of, which could be toss if it's broken, donate to a nonprofit, give to a family member, consign, a lot of different ways. But we want to make sure that they are doing what they have agreed to do, right? So if you say, I'm going to do this one area, we set the timer, we do 15 minutes, we see how we do. But we have to be consistent, and we have to know that whatever we declutter, like maybe you find things, I'm doing the kitchen counter, but this is something that really belongs in the bathroom or garage. You bring that thing right there, right now. You don't make another pile, you bring it right there, right now. Yeah.
And I was just going to add, Deb, I think, I'm thinking of different things as you talk about these things. So that's really in a form of exposure therapy. So you're exposing your client to something that's really stressful. So, and that's kind of where we get into the realm of distress tolerance. So seeing these things that are distressing and just being okay with it and looking at it, taking deep breaths and kind of living with that feeling of discomfort. And then, having someone like you to help support that, I think is great, so that you can kind of guide them and just kind of explain to people that it's okay to let these things go. I think that's such a huge component of the whole process of getting rid of things. So
yes. And a lot of times the clients want permission, and they want it from us, and we're like, we can't give you permission. The only person that can give you permission is you. Right. Yeah. You have to be okay. Professional organizers don't come in and, say, let's get rid of everything. That's not what our job is to do. Our job is to ask questions that are going to make you think and make your own decisions on what should stay in your home and what should not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. I'm so engrossed in the conversation here. All right. Paper. We're getting a couple of questions about the paper. Paper, the bills, the mail, the old bank statements. Is there a quick strategy for how to manage all of that?
Here's the thing, open your mail over your garbage, right? So anything that doesn't have any personal information and you don't need, just throw it out. If it has personal information and you still don't need it, we have either a bag or box we recommend, and have that be your shred bag or box, whether you shred it yourself or you go to a free shred event in your organization or in your area. And then the things that need action, you should have a file folder somewhere on the corner of your desk, wherever you pay your bills. Even if you pay them online, you should still have a way to access and have an action folder on the things that you want to do with your mail. And don't let it pile, because it is like, remember Gremlins? There was 1, then there was 10. I'm dating myself from the 80s movie. But that's what happens with paper. You just don't, you don't realize it just piles up and piles up and piles up. So you have to tackle the paper every day.
What about scanning or creating an electronic file? Is that also recommended? Absolutely.
I'm a big proponent of scanning, and I'm going to give you a quick tip. Not everybody knows this, but if you do, I'm so glad you do. If you have an iPhone, I'm not sure about Androids. If you have an iPhone and you go into the notes feature, I love the notes feature. My life is in the notes feature. So in the notes feature, if you open up a new note and you press the little camera, it'll say scan document, and you can put it right over the document, and it takes a crystal clear scan. I use it every single day for personal stuff, for business. And then you can decide, what you want to do. Most of the time I take it and then I get rid of the paper. I put it in the shred pile. after
I forgot about that feature on the iPhone. That's great.
I love it. In fact, I had to go. My doctor wanted me to give routine blood, and so I was just there, and I know the ladies, and so they're always asking questions, and they're like, "What do you got from us today, Deb?" And I'm like, "Do you have an iPhone?" They're like, "Yes." I'm like, "Get it out. I got to show you something." And they were so excited. They're like, "We can't wait for you to be done. We're going to start doing this with our work stuff." So yeah, use that, and then then just decide. Sometimes people, depending on it's tax season, right? So people are asking me like, do I have to keep the original tax returns? Like, you're if you're doing it on your own or you're going to have it, you can e-file it. If you want to keep a paper file and that makes you feel good, you can. It's not necessary. You can keep a digital file. And if you do keep a paper file, you only need the last 7 years, and that's it. We worked with a gentleman that had all of his tax returns all the way back to the early 70s.
Wow.
So that was large boxes that we brought to shredding for him. Yes. Because sometimes people organize and save things they really don't even need to save. So then they're doing the right things, but they're not doing it right. You know what I'm saying? So they're organizing things that they really don't necessarily need to save.
Well, we have covered a lot. So we are nearing the end, but I did want to ask you each if there was one tip or one bit of advice that you could share to help our attendees, like starting tonight or first thing tomorrow, or what would that be?
I'll let Deb go first.
Oh, thanks, Kerry. Okay, so I always like to give like a little assignment because it just gets you motivated and excited. So it's after 8, so maybe not tonight, maybe the first thing in the morning. Just try to find between 5 and 15 minutes, whatever time you can tomorrow, and do something. Whatever that something is, let it be something that is really causing you stress right now. So again, the piled up dishes, the laundry that never got put away, the kids' book bags that are laying on the floor, or they're, something that they haven't used in a month. Like, do something. And even if it's small, celebrate your successes. That is so important.
Yeah. I was gonna add just self-compassion. Be compassionate to yourself, and you are doing a great job. You're successful. If you're doing something, that's successful. So no feelings of guilt anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to share one tip that one of our attendees shared here. Anne says, "Have you heard about CUTE? C-U-T-E. So, for instance, I love that sweet Easter lamb. It's so cute. It is cute, but really, you can't use this ever. C-U-T-E. Take a picture of it and let it go."
That's great.
Cute.
Can't use this ever. Is it cute? Can you use it? I like that. Take a picture, pass it on. Yeah, I love that.
That's great. That's
great. Well, that's wonderful. Well, we have one more polling question. So we want to find out how everyone's feeling now that we've shared all this great information. How motivated do you feel to begin decluttering your life? Again, we're from 0, not motivated, to 5, feeling very motivated. I want to see how all this great information, are you feeling overwhelmed, or are you feeling like you've got the information you need to get started? This has been really, really helpful. And I think there's been little, overarching concepts, but even just those little bits of advice that I think will be so helpful for all of us to start tonight, start tomorrow, not feel guilty about this. All right, let's see. How did we do? All right, yes, feeling good. All right, we've got almost 80% of our crew is feeling like they are pretty motivated to get started. So that's very encouraging to see. All right, well, I just want to remind everyone that you are not alone, that Virtua provides resources to help. And a reminder that this session has been recorded, so we will have that emailed to you in about a week. As a bonus, all of our registrants will also receive a gift from Deb. We have some free tip sheets that she will be providing through our email. We'll have a link to some resources to help you get started. And then just a reminder that you can connect with Virtua's primary care. So staying organized includes staying organized about your health, and Virtua primary care offices offer services for your physical health, but also your mental and behavioral health as well. So for information or to schedule an appointment with one of our Virtua primary care providers, visit virtua.org/primary care. To learn more about the resources that Deb Cabral provides, you can visit decluttercoachdeb.com. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been just another fabulous, fabulous Virtua Health Real Talk session. Thank you, Kerry. Thank you, Deb.
Thanks so much for having me. This has been fantastic.
Thank you both. Thank you, everybody.
It's been
Thank
great.
you very much. And we are going to look forward to seeing everyone real soon. So thank you.